Spurs nil, Chelsea won. Spurs were rubbish. I'm sorry, I have to say it. They were so bad. I'm StattoJoe. You are a legend for watching this video, and I'm just going to go through some of the stats for tonight's game, react to some of the key things, and give an opinion on what I think is going on at Spurs at the moment. Spurs were just dire, pardon the pun. Just so, especially in the first half, and the first thing we're going to look at is the first half stats. Um, just shocking. So these two teams are teams who you'd put in the top 7 teams in the Premier League. If you had a traditional top 7, Chelsea and Tottenham would both be in that bracket. And Spurs look like a team who were in relegation places trying to hold off Chelsea. It was really, I thought the first half was so embarrassing from a Tottenham perspective. And you can see in the stats here, only 32% possession, only 2 shots. And when you look at the attack momentum meter, it is just astounding. First half, so each line represents a minute, and in the first 40 minutes, every single minute went to Chelsea. Spurs had 4 minutes of a bit more attack than Chelsea, but like the first half was just so one-sided. I would say about 90% of the game was played in the Tottenham half. Tottenham invited pressure. They allowed Chelsea to come to them. And ultimately, yes, it was a stupid foul for the penalty, but it was actually Chelsea deserved the goal. There was no doubt about it. They deserved that. 7 shots. They had more obviously they had five corners to Spurs none. And it was just, and even look at the passing, like 355 accurate passes to Spurs 144. So there's over 211 difference there. Like I think it's just absurd for a team who are supposed to be striving for Champions League places. And not even you wouldn't even say they're a cert for Europa League. After that performance tonight, I just I was baffled honestly at half time. I was like, what is going on? We look at the second half, and they just came out and they realised they had to play. They had to take the game to Chelsea. There's an element of, yes, Chelsea were okay to sit back and invite the pressure on from Tottenham, but overall, like, the second half was a far better performance, probably more encouraging. And what's interesting here is, so they had 5 shots in the second half, but they didn't have their first shot in the second half until the 79th minute. So all of their shots came in the last 10 minutes of the half in the game. They only had 7 shots overall, I think. Yeah, 7 shots to Chelsea's 18. So really, they weren't at the races up front. And is Harry Kane that good that they just are lost without him up front? It has to be that. There's no other reason I can think of that they struggle so much up front. And it is bizarre to me that Bale isn't getting played. There must be something going on there. Just hasn't been good enough for them. But we look at, in terms of the second half, Tottenham had a lot more of the ball. You can see there they completed more passes than Chelsea did in that half, and they had more possession, only slightly more, but they still had more possession, and a lot more of the game was played. Chelsea had to do a lot more defending, and there were a couple of times when Chelsea were able to get Tottenham on the break, but overall, just honestly not good enough. And there's a couple of things that I think need to be talked about, and the first is the lack of presence up front for Tottenham. So we've already talked about how they've only had 7 shots, so just not good enough. And you look at the stats here for performance and players and things. Carlos Vinicius, who came in as was always going to be a sub for Harry Kane. A 6.3 rating. He's not doing enough up there. You could argue the entire team hasn't done enough tonight. Poor ratings all round. Eric Dyer, even despite giving away the penalty, was their top-rated player, which is interesting. Just shows how good he was defensively for Tottenham, despite the penalty. Chelsea looked better. I think it's interesting that Tuchel has dropped Chilwell, Tammy Abraham, Ziyech. I think it's quite interesting that. But I thought Chelsea were decent enough. Defensively looked pretty good and played some good football. So I think there are definitely some signs of improvement there for Chelsea. But I just want to talk about Mourinho for 30 seconds because this is the first time ever in his managerial career that he's lost 2 back-to-back home league games, and Tottenham have now lost 3 games in a row. And it just got me thinking, and I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts and comments. Is Mourinho past it? Is it time that he went away from football or was managing at lower levels? Because I don't think that the style in which he manages now, I'm not sure that that works anymore. I think it's too easy. It's almost too easy to lose when you play the way that Tottenham play, or any team that Mourinho's managed in the last 5 years. Ever since he left Real Madrid, he hasn't been the same person. But they were just my quick and initial reactions to the game. And we had a look at some of the stats. If we just look at the league table finally, so Chelsea are climbing back into those European places, but of course, Everton here have 2 games in hand. They win both those games, flying. They go up into fourth. They overtake Liverpool. Spurs do have a game in hand on Chelsea, and if they win that, which is never a given, they would have the same number of points as them. But Spurs have beaten Chelsea since 2018, so just not good enough in general. So you can see they've lost their last 3 games. But what did you think? Please do let me know if you have any thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to read what you had to say. And we are on the road to 50 subs. If you enjoy this type of content and if you want to see more, please do give this channel a subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed it. I would really, really appreciate it. But they were my thoughts and they were some of the stats. But join me again later on this week. I'll be looking briefly at the Six Nations tomorrow, and then we have the Liverpool Man City game to talk about on Sunday. So I will see you then.